How sex took over pop music, the birth of the sexy persona. For decades, the music we love has been wrapped in velvet whispers, sweaty dance floors, and sex. From the first sultry crooner to today's shock and awe pop stars, behind every seductive hook and every revealing outfit is a secret story. Sex didn't just find its way into pop music, it was invited in, weaponized, and turned into a global brand. Tonight, we trace the shocking evolution of the sexy song, and the provocative persona that changed music, culture, and even the way we see ourselves. The Forbidden Roots. The story begins in the shadows, in the smoke-filled juke joints of the 1920s and 1930s. This is where the blues was born, not just as a sound, but as a language of desire. Blues queens like Ma Rainey and Bessie Smith sang about heartbreak, loneliness, and sex. Raw, unfiltered, sometimes vulgar. Songs like Shave 'Em Dry weren't subtle. They were bawdy, bold, and deliberately meant to make audiences blush, laugh, and lean in closer. These weren't pop stars in the modern sense. They were rebels with guitars and voices that refused to whisper. And the world was not ready. Churches called it sinful. Newspapers called it dangerous. But the crowds kept coming. Because sex, in music, was no longer a secret, it was a sensation. Jazz, innuendo, and the birth of the sex symbol. By the 1930s and 1940s, jazz and big band took the baton, but with a smoother, more sophisticated disguise. Keyboard glides, sultry saxophone lines, and late-night club lighting created a soundtrack of temptation. Lyrics might talk about dancing all night or the moonlight, but everyone knew what it really meant. Double entendre became the weapon of choice, because radio censors and conservative America demanded restraint. Then came the sex symbol, the idea that an artist could sell not just a song, but a fantasy. Jazz singers like Billie Holiday and later Lena Horne didn't just sing, they draped themselves in glamour, in eyeliner, in slow, intentional movements. Their bodies became part of the performance. A glance, a curve of the hip, a slightly parted mouth, these were the birth of the visual seduction that would one day flood your Instagram feed. Elvis, rock, and the shaking revolution. When Elvis Presley exploded in the 1950s, something fundamental changed. Music stopped being just sound. It became spectacle. On stage, Elvis didn't sing about sex, he moved like sex. His hips, his legs, the way he bit his lip, the way he draped his microphone like a lover's arm, it all triggered a cultural earthquake. Moral crusaders called it lewd. Some TV networks banned him from showing his waist. Critics warned that he was corrupting the youth. But the teenagers, they went wild. Elvis proved something powerful. You don't need explicit lyrics to sell a sexy persona, just a look, a move, and the right energy. He became the first modern sex god of pop, and the template for every gyrating performer who followed. The 1960s to 1970s to the sexual revolution hits the stereo. Then came the 1960s and 1970s, the era when sex stopped whispering and started screaming from the radio. The sexual revolution, psychedelics, and the breakdown of strict social rules turned music into a playground of desire. Lyrics about going all the way and one-night stands replaced the innocent first love fairy tales of the 1950s. Rock bands like the Rolling Stones, The Doors, and Led Zeppelin oozed raw sexuality. Mick Jagger danced like a panther, Robert Plant's voice moaned like a prayer, and Jim Morrison's stage presence felt like a dangerous invitation. For the first time, being a rock star didn't just mean being talented, it meant being dangerously desirable. On the other side of the spectrum, Donna Summer and LaBelle brought overt sensuality into the mainstream. Songs like Love to Love You Baby and Lady Marmalade were soaked in breathy vocals, late-night rhythms, and lyrics that celebrated sex as a celebration of freedom, especially for women. And you couldn't look at the 70s without seeing the sex symbol fully crystallized. From Cher and Diana Ross in sequins to David Bowie blurring gender and sexuality on stage, every album cover, every pose, every headline turned the artist into a living fantasy. For the first time, sexuality was openly part of the brand, not a dirty secret but a marketing strategy. Madonna, Prince, and the era of graphic glamour. Fast forward to the 1980s, the decade where sex in music went from suggestion to statement. Enter Madonna. At first, she dressed like a Catholic schoolgirl with a cross around her neck. But behind that innocent image was a masterclass in provocation. Songs like a Virgin seemed playful, but they were dripping in sexual metaphor. Her music videos turned her bedroom into a stage, her body into a brand. At the same time, Prince blurred every line between sacred and profane. Purple stages, velvet voices, and lyrics that whispered about kissing God, babies, and everything in between. He didn't just flirt with sex, he celebrated it, mythologized it, placed it somewhere between religion and revolution. This era birthed the modern idea that a pop star doesn't just entertain, they seduce. Every pose, every outfit, every scandal was part of the story. By the 1990s and 2000s, the gloves came off. Hip-hop and R&B exploded with songs that were openly, deliberately, and unapologetically sexual. Artists like Salt-N-Pepa, TLC, Sir Mix-a-Lot, and later Nelly, Usher, and Ciara turned bedroom talk into chart-topping anthems. Across the ocean, dancehall artists in Jamaica turned graphic lyrics into dance floor mantras. Singers like Spice and Vybz Kartel didn't hide their messages. They celebrated desire, bodies, and raw attraction in a way that shocked some and liberated others. Critics called it vulgar. Fans called it real. One thing became undeniable. Sex wasn't just an undercurrent anymore, it was the main chorus. The present to power, provocation, and the price of heat. Today, the line between empowerment and exploitation has never been blurrier. Female pop and hip-hop stars like Nicki Minaj, Cardi B, and Megan Thee Stallion weaponize their sexuality, not to hide, but to own. Their lyrics proudly talk about pleasure, bodies, and control. Their videos are highly stylized, provocative, and controversial. Some call it self-expression. Others call it a trap, a system that rewards women for being hot while punishing them for being too much. But one truth remains, the sexy song and the provocative persona were born in sweat, rebellion, and desire. From the juke joints of the 1920s to the TikTok dances of today, sex has always been the forbidden ingredient that makes music feel dangerous, alive, and unforgettable. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the history of sexy personas in music, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling me which era of provocation you think changed everything, the blues, the rock and roll revolution, the wild 70s, or the fearless pop of today.